time, because of the landslides, Bahia was cut off. And so all of this area, there was also no bridge. So landslides basically took away the hills here. You can also see some of the hills. It's pretty obvious, right? We'll also see more of that when we go into the estuary in Isla Corazon. So the city was cut off from supplies. Food had to be brought in from Manta. Right? This is a coastal town all the way down there, some 50 kilometers. They had to come in by boats to bring food and supplies in order to help the population here in Bahia. So that happened in 1 year, and then the next year they again had an El Nino season. That means months of rain, 24 hours a day, rain, 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 rain. You can imagine that normal life was almost impossible, right? Especially when the roads were not as developed yet, and when the entire infrastructure was not ready for that. So they rebuilt most of the city after the El Nino, and it was a really big effort. However, an earthquake just hit a month later and took down an entire one of those tall buildings and took it down entirely. And many houses were destroyed, and that was definitely the deadly blow. So one of the biggest problems actually that Bahia faced afterwards was a so-called brain drain. What does that mean? Brain drain.
No education.
No. It means when the most educated and qualified people are leaving, right? Because after this disaster, obviously there was not that much of, and they did a lot of rebuilding. They were really motivated, but then the earthquake just on top of it was just too much. So many people left to Guayaquil or Quito, right? And they're still living there, and actually they're coming back for vacations to visit their families. So that was pretty hard for Bahia. There's also implications, of course, on trade, on the commercial life, and so basically, all the well-educated, well-qualified people left. After that, the bridge was built by the government in order to make sure that this would never happen again. That there would always be a supply route for Bahia, and also connect Samin Center and Bahia. Samin Center is over there, another town. Before the bridge, you had to drive all the way around the estuary, all the way back to a city called Chone, and then come back around the Samin Center. So sometimes it was even a day tour, like some 12 hours of riding in the car. So now with the bridge, it's 10 minutes.
Wow.
Why the deforestation? So what do you imagine in this area were the most common reasons for deforestation?
Agriculture.
Agriculture, yes. So do you think that was really the most critical factor given the long dry seasons?
No. Fuel.
Building materials, very good, yes. Something else you can think of? Causes of deforestation?
Fuel.
Fuel? And by fuel, what do you mean?
Firewood, cooking wood. Yeah, firewood.
Exactly, firewood. Firewood was probably one of the biggest reasons for extraction. Back then, people didn't have gas tanks, right? So all cooking was done with firewood. And another reason was cattle ranching, though not as prominent here because it's simply too dry, right? So, again?
There's so many cattle there.
And there was a reason for the tropical dry forest deforestation, but there also had been a lot of mangroves. Why do you think they would cut down the mangroves? What are some reasons for that? Mangroves. Why would I cut down mangroves?
They have a large root system.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there's a lot to harvest from it.
What can you harvest from mangroves?
I have no idea. Oh, mangoes?
Mangroves.
Oh.
Not mangoes.
Harvest mangoes.
Actually, unfortunately, they didn't do a lot with the mangroves. They just cut them down to make space for shrimp farms. So shrimp farms in the 60s was a really profitable business here, and turned a lot of people into billionaires, right?
Really?
So this area here, estuary Rio Chone, was one of the main, as other estuaries in Ecuador, and also Dr. Stuart Hamilton tomorrow will tell us more about it. It was one of the main areas where shrimp farms were established. probably you see over there, you see these little pools or water accumulations.
Yeah.
These are shrimp farms too.
Oh.
So the muddy soil, or like the mud basically in which the mangroves are growing, is super fertile ground and ideal for having shrimp, for growing shrimp in there. So obviously economical benefits by it, but I mean, what do you think? Do you think they were justified doing that? I mean, back then there was not a lot of knowledge about what it could actually mean. For them it was just getting out of poverty, right? There was a more urgent call of the hour back then. Like, we want to move forward, we don't want to live in poverty, we don't want to have crime, we want to have... oh goodness. We want to have we want to have a better standard of living for us, right? And if we have to cut down the mangroves, you know, there was not a lot of consciousness about what that would actually mean. The same with the forest, right? So also this estuary before had been actually frequented by large ships and trade ships from all over the world. This building that you see there with the green roof, do all of you see that? The green roof, which looks a bit more fancy than the other ones. It was the US Embassy, and it was the first in Ecuador. Why? Because Bahia was the first port in Ecuador. So all of the ships would come in here and would exchange goods, etc. There are many people in Bahia have descendants who are from Lebanon or from the United States or from Italy or from other countries. All traders, merchants who came by, who visited to exchange goods. And also some of whom stayed, and found families. So it was a port. But obviously, did you see any big ships here anymore? No. The depth of the estuary was 40 meters before, some 60 years ago. 40 meters, right? There were sharks, giant crocodiles, whales, and dolphins in this estuary, right? You can even ask Don Ramon about it. And what happened is that due to the sedimentation, right, the estuary began to fill up. We talked about sedimentation yesterday, right? It began to fill up with these sediments, and now the depth of the estuary is 5 meters. So during low tide, there are actually islands forming here in the estuary, right? So there are real islands on which you can walk. So shallow is the water. So like big ships cannot enter here anymore, and also there's no trade because of that, obviously. So what are the reasons for the sedimentation? One reason were, of course, the landslides caused by El Nino and by deforestation, because there were no trees to hold the soil in place, and erosion did the rest. So there were just massive amounts of landslide soil coming down, filling up the estuary, right, from both sides. On the other hand, you also have through the Rio Chone, right? You have a lot of just fertilizer like that's being used within the region, and like all kinds of chemicals, all kinds of stuff that shouldn't be there coming in, and also sediments. And then one of the other reasons is the mangroves. The lack of mangroves. The mangroves are usually a filtration or a cleaning system. So they would actually take out, or at least filter the sediments, right? And redirect them. But without mangroves, the sedimentation or the sediments just stay where they are. So because of that, we have the situation as it is right now. Obviously, the people back then who did the deforestation couldn't know about these things, you know. There was no environmental education in that sense. It was probably not even a really extensive environmental literature or academia around it, right? At least not in Spanish language, right? Or that would have reached by here. So now, some 50 years, 60 years later, you see the effects of decisions that have been done a long time ago. And that can also be really important for us to always keep in mind, right? We might not see the effects of our actions, of the actions in our societies now, but maybe 60 years down the road, our children will wonder, oh yeah, there have been ships before. Okay, cool. There have been forests all over the place. And it's like all these consequences just happen over the long term. And but here's a really good example, right? Especially the vulnerability to natural disasters. Yeah, the town itself, I already told you, and these buildings are mostly apartment buildings, and most of them are empty during the majority of the year. So they're owned from wealthy Ecuadorians who live in Quito and Guayaquil. Obviously, also some of who have lived here before and then left after the natural disasters with their families. So I already shared with some of you that during New Year's or Easter or Christmas, actually the population of Bahia doubles because of all the people who come here for these vacation days, right? So the streets are full, you see only new faces, and it's an entire different ambience. But for a major part, these apartments are actually empty. Down there you see the marketplace just in front of us. That's like the main center.
It's got the like orange bricks around it.
Oh, all the cars are parked?
Mm-hmm.
You also walk through it when you go down. And,
You guys can look.
Where the beaches where most people are hanging out, maybe also later for surf classes, are not really visible from here, but they're behind.
This is the longest bridge
Row of buildings.
of Ecuador. This is the
The longest, yeah.
longest bridge. This is the longest bridge of Ecuador.
Catholic church with a blue roof. And for now, do you have questions about what we just talked about?